What's up, everybody? I apologize for taking such a long time to get this review out. Typically, I like to get them out 1 to 2 days after the show's been aired, given my work schedule and other things, but this week has been a pain in the ass. People not showing up for shifts, so you have to stay for extra hours, get your paycheck, and you realize they forgot 40 hours worth of wages on your paycheck. So hopefully you can get it by tomorrow instead of on Monday. And a bunch of other crap. Lots of physical labor around the house since I'm working on building a porch. So mixing concrete, pouring footers, with high 80s or low 90s weather. It's a whole lot of fun. But anyway, I wasn't just going to give up and just skip an episode. I got to stay consistent. In this episode, episode 4 of season 7 of Game of Thrones is really good. We got away from some of the political intrigue and more of the political games that are going on, and got more into kind of the more high adventure fantasy warfare mode, where we had a lot of action and pretty cool ending to the episode, and so on and so forth. So yeah, let's dive right in, shall we? All right, so Highgarden's been taken, and the Spoils of War, I believe, is the name of the episode, so it's very fitting. They got their gold from Highgarden so they can pay off the Iron Bank, assuming that that's every bit that they need to hand over. So quite a sum, and of course, Bronn, who's been promised all sorts of things, gets his, what are they, gold dragons, I guess, is the currency that they use, or gets a nice bag full of coins for his trouble, and of course he, says it's not a castle, that's for sure. Wasn't he set up with a kind of a frumpy-looking gal in one of the previous episodes? Might have been last episode or last season or season 5, I can't remember. Who was, highborn but not the best looking, so he kind of got shafted on that. I'm sure he wanted to get a looker, but anyway, so yeah, he's telling him, why not Highgarden? And Jaime's kind of, busting his balls a little bit, messing with him on it. Because, he's got to pay his debt eventually, but there's more important things currently, because the war has not been won, so, you can, like you said, you can take over Highgarden, and then here come the dragons, and they roast you alive, and it was all for nothing, so patience, my good sir, patience. The Queen of Thorns certainly did give him one last prick in the balls before she died, that's for sure. And I don't know, I'm not even sure if Jaime will pass this on to Cersei, because I don't know if he wants to upset her even more, because Jaime is the one that convinced Cersei to go, or to be a little more lenient on her, and give her the poison instead of chopping her head off or whatever. So who knows? I would guess that Jaime would keep it from her, given how volatile her mood is and her instability mentally, or I guess, she's getting a little bit crazy and overzealous about her reign over the Seven Kingdoms, so we'll have to see. I don't think that's going to be coming from his lips anytime soon. Especially given Tyrion was the one that she was so consumed with hate over, because she thought he killed Joffrey. So then maybe again Tyrion ends up in a position where he is at the mercy of Cersei. Rhyme. And Jaime brings up the fact that the Queen of Thorns confessed to being the one killer. Who knows? I don't know. At that point, who knows if it would even matter, since he sided with Daenerys to begin with. Alright, so the Tarleys, father and son, come over to report what's been going on as far as the larder and the granary and the stock of food and what they'll need to feed people. Heading to King's Landing, and sends Bronn along with them to help motivate the farmers to hand over the goods. And I don't think they should have too much an issue with that, since Tarley Sr. seems to be not the most merciful human being, to say the least. So, the representative from the Iron Bank has basically said, yeah, we're going to back you, of course, as soon as the payment is secured. And then we take a hop over to the fortress at Winterfell, and Littlefinger, or Peter Baelish, is showing Bran the Valyrian dagger that was Joffrey had decided to use, or for the cutthroat to kill Bran. Because I think his whole motivation or idea was that he was a cripple, and he was going to show him mercy. It was based on something Robert Baratheon said. And of course, now that Bran is the three-eyed raven, or three-eyed crow, however you'd like to say it, he's got all, he can pretty much tap into these time, the time past and present, future, I think, to a certain degree. So, he can find out about how all this stuff went down, and uses one of Littlefinger's terms about chaos being a ladder. That's kind of his political philosophy. And Peter Baelish there, he almost is struck dumb, because I don't think he's quite aware of how Bran would know that to begin with. So yeah, that, I think, probably put him on his guard more than anything. And as you know, at least from the books and somewhat from the show, that Bran develops a bit of a crush on Mara Reed. He kind of makes him curse that he's a cripple, because otherwise his path may have been a little bit different. Maybe the two of them would have got together. So, but now that he's made his transformation, he's become more of a stranger to her, and that's just kind of his fate. So. She definitely notices the change, and so I imagine she'll still stay around, and help, with the battle to come, or maybe she won't. Maybe she'll go back to the rest of her house or clan, or whatever you want to call it, and bid them adieu. So, yep. Bran sacrificed quite a bit to attain the powers that he now is in possession of. Alright, so Arya, of course, returns along last, and we get the typical, guards at the gate don't know, of course you are, that Arya's dead, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of a scene that we see many times, or, kind of a funny thing, but it gives her a chance to show her ability to disappear and whatnot. So I guess it serves a purpose. But of course, she and Sansa, meet down in the crypts, embrace. The sisters haven't seen each other for quite a long time, and story-wise length. And of course, Arya mentions her list of people she's going to kill, and and whatnot. And of course, Sansa thinks she's just cracking a joke, just kind of like the list, nobody seems to take the list quite seriously until the next scene, where Bran is over by the weirwood tree, or the heart tree, weirwood forest heart tree, sorry. And of course Arya goes, and they embrace as well. Brother and sister haven't seen each other for a long time, and of course she he gives her the dagger, based upon not being useless to him as a cripple, of course. But there's quite a history behind the dagger as well. Plus, it's Valyrian steel, so now Arya has a weapon that she can use against the real enemy. And I'm sure she'll be in the middle of the fighting somehow. Would be kind of a waste to not use her for that. And of course, let's see, he mentions that he saw her at the crossroads, that he thought she was going to go to King's Landing to kill Cersei, and then Sansa starts to realize, Arya's list of people to kill is not some kind of outlandish idea that she's not, maybe she doesn't know if she's a cold-blooded killer, but she knows that she has killed people, and this is definitely not, Arya Underfoot, Arya Horseface, or whatever that she remembers from, season 1 or the beginning of the book, where she was just kind of a mischief maker, but, pretty much innocent, and, quick to cry if she got sad. But now she's definitely a completely different person, like kind of they all are. All right, so over at Dragonstone, Missandei, I believe is her name, Missandei, and Daenerys are having a little chat between ladies about Missandei and Grey Worm, getting it on together, and kind of an embarrassing, maybe a little bit embarrassing thing, kind of wink wink type thing. And then Jon Snow interrupts and takes Daenerys down to the caverns or caves beneath the mountain or hillside or whatever that the castle's on, and basically to show her what the dragon glass looks like before they start harvesting it or mining it. And then he even shows her something even deeper into the caves. So we see a lot of designs, almost like cave paintings or cave murals and whatnot, or carved into it or painted on. That there's symbolism and designs that are associated with the Children of the Forest. We see that also depictions of mankind, because they were both, because Jon probably knows the tales of the first men and whatnot, because of the Starks still honor the old gods and the old ways, and so she's showing them that they were, she thinks that they were warring against each other, but of course they were, but at one point, but then shows her the depiction of the others, and that lets her know that the Children of the Forest and the race of men, the first men, combine their forces to fight this greater enemy, which is a nice storytelling device, because it cuts through a lot of unnecessary stuff and gets to the point and finally convinces Daenerys that yes, these beings are real. Yes, these ancient beings, the Children of the Forest, considered these the others to be such a significant threat that they would set aside their animosity and their towards mankind and unite to fight them. But of course, Daenerys doesn't want to completely accept, or she does, based with one caveat, and that is that Jon bends the knee. And then she kind of says something a little bit ironic about, because Jon is afraid that, if he bends a knee and submits, that his people are basically going to lose all faith in him, and they're not going to rally around him. So he needs to be the leader that they need, and to have to look like a person that's in a position of power and strength. And then she, of course, kind of gives him the line about, "Oh, you're gonna let your pride stand in the way of saving your people." Well, Jon could say the same thing about Daenerys, because this is all the bending the knee, and all of this is about pride and wanting him to submit to her. So I think she's far more prideful than Jon Snow is when it comes to foolish pride or reckless pride. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. I'm like, look who's talking, Daenerys. You're just as proud and stubborn as Jon. So, which of course is a chemistry for, the necessary elements for lots of sexual tension. But who knows? We'll see where that goes. So Tyrion comes by with some not so great news, and Daenerys basically realizes that Dorne, House Tyrell and the Highgarden and the Unsullied, or at least a good amount of them, are lost in the conflict, and as well as the those of the Iron Islands. So she's not too happy, needless to say, and she kind of looks at Tyrion as if and wondering if he's playing both sides, and he's protecting his relatives, his brother or his siblings, his brother and sister. And while I can see him wanting to, at some way, wanting to protect Jaime, because they, even though they had a falling out when he left, at least in the book, it's more of a falling out, because Tyrion says, "Yeah, I killed Joffrey, fuck off," basically, in spite, not, and kind of regrets saying that. So she's suspicious that his loyalties are split. I don't think they are, because I'm pretty sure Tyrion knows that what his sister is capable of. But Daenerys doesn't want to make any errors of judgment. So She asks Jon for some counsel, and he gives it to her, and basically, is kind of saying what Tyrion's been saying, is if you just go to the Red Keep and burn it, everything, and kill, thousands of people just to get rid of Cersei, I mean, she's just going to look like the conqueror, that brings fire and death, and that's not going to really create an image of someone that wants to bring peace and prosperity when she's bringing only destruction. So she's in a bit of a tough spot, most definitely. But yeah, it's good advice. They need to, when you have when you're fighting, I guess depending on the fan opinion, if Daenerys is the lesser of two evils or not compared to Cersei, you want to make the greater evil, if you're assuming Cersei's greater evil, to look as bad as as humanly possible. Otherwise, if you create anything that might give her sympathy or a reason to choose her for protection against the dragons, you're in a pretty bad situation overall, especially with the losses to all your troops. All right, so Podrick Payne's getting a few lessons and some training with Brienne, and of course he's still pretty clumsy with the sword, which is to be expected since, he hasn't trained nearly as long as she has. And then, of course, Arya shows up, and they have a bit of a training duel of sorts that Brienne thinks that, she's just going to go easy on her, and ends up kind of getting a bit more serious. And actually, if you want to listen to a pretty good review of this fight, Matt Easton, who has a YouTube channel called Scala Gladiatoria, is kind of one of the more knowledgeable people on the internet when it comes to historical European martial arts, weaponry of the Middle Ages and other periods, up to the Napoleonic age and so forth. So he does a great analysis, and he basically says that Arya is trying to slash or cut with a weapon that is basically useless as a cutting weapon. Her needle is basically a stabbing weapon. You're basically just looking to run someone through with it. Someone in armor like Brienne who's getting those attacks, any kind of cutting motion with that sword is idiotic. But I guess it's just to show Arya's speed and agility as being something that can overcome Brienne's strength and whatnot. So entertaining, but yeah, if you want to go to his channel, Scala Gladiatoria, he's got reviews of other Game of Thrones stuff and a lot of analysis on things like that, amongst other historical stuff. So yeah, just a shout out. It's a good channel. You'll enjoy his reviews of the fights because he gives a very realistic opinion. And overall, basically shows that Game of Thrones, at least their sword duels and fights overall, are pretty substandard. They're not all that great. And we notice at the end of the scene that Peter Baelish is, of course, looking down at Arya. She's looking up at him. So I think there's a lot of suspicion. I don't know what is going on in his mind, but I think he may be getting more and more pushed into a corner. So I don't know exactly what his Joker card or his wild card is going to be that gets him out of the situation, but I don't think he is. I mean, I wouldn't, who knows, maybe Arya will be the one to kill him. Be hard to say, but I don't think he is going to make it. So Davos and Jon are having a bit of a conversation, and Davos is giving him a hard time because he thinks that Jon's been checking out Daenerys, which he probably has to a bit. And then they talk to Missandei, and it's interesting because in her homeland, marriage doesn't even exist, so you can't have anything that you would call a bastard because the marriage, like I said, is not a requirement, which, that doesn't sound too bad, especially in this day and age. If you didn't have to have anything called like alimony, that would be pretty good. So yeah, it's funny, I think, I don't know if might have been Missandei is the one that, she gave Jon the advice of going around and talking to different people, that she helped save, or Daenerys helped save, to find out why they, respect her. And then, of course, they go right to Missandei, and she gives her story, and Jon, questions whether or not she would really give Missandei her freedom if she wanted to leave Daenerys behind. So that's definitely a good question. Then old Theon shows up. with the remainder of his Ironborn group. And Jon, of course, remembers that Theon was a turncoat that helped the Boltons take Winterfell. And so, yeah, but he did get Sansa out and save her life, so that's his saving grace. But Theon at this point is basically just a broken human being. So any kind of mercy or is kind of, I don't know. I guess in a way it's acceptable, because he's just a kind of a pathetic broken human being now, so you're not much of a threat, But he wants to get his sister back, so he definitely, at least he feels guilt for it. But maybe he'll have another run-in with his uncle, and he'll have to make a different decision in order to save his sister. But unfortunately, old Daenerys is not here when he needs her help to get his sister back. So where could she be? All right, now we're back with the Lannister troops encampment, and apparently the gold has made its way safely past the gates of King's Landing, so Cersei's support from the Iron Bank is assured, and then there's a bit of banter with Tarly and his son Dickon, who, apparently Bronn finds hilarious, which, I don't know. That seems more of like, something that would be funny today. And because I don't know if dick is used all that much as a slang term. So, yeah, it might have been not the most appropriate response. So anyway, and then they kind of ask him about his first experience, fighting and everything, because his father's not around. So he gives him a little insight into what it felt like to be part of that taking of Highgarden. So basically, he had some kind of ethical conundrum there because of their former allegiance to the Tyrells, but of course they changed at the last minute, and then he didn't realize that killing people, when people die, they void their bowels, so to speak. And then so Bran, of course, wants to rub it in by kind of saying, oh, you're just kind of a fancy noble boy that doesn't know anything about the real world. He's kind of busting his chops about it. So he doesn't. I don't think he might want to be a person of respect and power and have a castle, but I don't think he has much respect for the aristocracy. Then we get to the best part of the episode. Bronn hears something and they turn, and Jaime looks at the horizon, and it's kind of these gray, dark storm clouds coming over the field, which is appropriate because Daenerys Stormborn, and realizes that something is on its way. And so Jaime, of course, rallies the troops, get everybody in position, form their shield wall, and wait for the oncoming attack, who they really don't know who this is. But maybe, given if they assume if it's cavalry, they probably are assuming it's the Dothraki, but because they know that they've sailed across the sea with Daenerys, their new leader. All right, and then we do see indeed the Dothraki coming over the horizon and charging in their legions, and of course the Lannister soldiers or foot soldiers are shaking in their boots a little bit, because that is a pretty intimidating sight. If you're formed a shield wall against a charging animals, that's pretty dangerous. But then we get even better when we hear the roar of Drogon, and he comes soaring through the air, and then we get that side shot of him kind of, flying over the troops and to lead the way. And, that's kind of what we've been waiting for, is to see some actual military encounters with the dragons doing their best. So, yeah, that was definitely a kick-ass moment. Send shivers and goosebumps, most definitely. Very, very cool. Though I'm not sure it would be the wisest thing for the Dothraki to go storming through that dragon's fire, because I imagine it's a little more intense, than regular fire, maybe like napalm or something. And I also should point out that those, I mean, this has also been an analysis by some other channels on YouTube as far as the, I think it's called the Arak, which is the Dothraki kind of like sickle, which is based off, I think, the Egyptian Khopesh, is pretty much a crap weapon when it comes to cavalry. You got like no reach whatsoever. It's pretty much shit when it comes to cavalry. So, it's kind of they would have been better served having a different kind of setup, different kind of weapon, and using that as kind of a sidearm, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, it's the show. They want it to look cool. But yeah, cavalry do not use, super short weapons that you basically have to, strike in this big arc. So yeah, against, someone that's, wielding a spear, you're at a pretty big disadvantage. You're probably better off having a sword and shield. But that's not their culture, so it at least fits with the story overall, but not the best strategy. So yeah, pretty kick-ass battle. It's definitely works better on a large scale than, kind of one-on-one. And, of course, lots of heroics by different people. Bronn, of course, is tough as nails, and I was kind of surprised. I didn't think that they would... I thought they were going to use that kind of that crossbow or... set up for the castles, on the ramparts and towers and stuff. It was pretty smart, though, to keep it under wraps, in the wagon train, if you will, and have it there, because, you never know. It's anti-aircraft defense system or whatever. And, I don't know, Daenerys should have... I guess she wanted ultimate victory, but she definitely risked. Those dragons are very precious, and I'm surprised they didn't make armor for those dragons. Obviously, the wings wouldn't be be able to protect, but you could protect the chest and area. But so Bronn gets to play Bard from Lord of the Rings, killing Smaug, except for this time he doesn't kill Drogon, but he takes him out of the air and makes him vulnerable, which is it's a big shock, especially since the Dothraki guy is kind of gloating over the victory, saying your people don't know how to fight. But if you'd taken the dragon out of the equation, it would have been obviously it'd have been far more even battle, and the Lannister army may have prevailed, possibly. So the Drogon gets taken out of the air. Jaime is in a position that possibly, because Daenerys is off the mount and possibly vulnerable herself, so in kind of a last hurrah heroic move, he picks up a spear and charges at her like a lancer and is going to run her through and sacrifice himself. But Drogon's reaction is a little bit quicker than he anticipated, and he's looking down the barrel of a flamethrower with wings, and but of course Bronn there to save the day and save his pal. Shows that he's got some legitimate respect and camaraderie with Jaime, and and then Jaime at the end, as we see, falls into what I'm assuming is a lake or of some kind, or a river estuary of some kind, and goes sinking down. In typical fashion, you see a lot of that. Kind of reminded me of Sam in the sinking below the water, and then Frodo reaching down and pulling back into the boat, which is probably what's going to happen. People definitely see the parallel of Jaime pushing Bran out the tower window and causing him to be crippled, and Jaime, kind of plummeting, not through air, but through the water, with his armor on, sinking in kind of a similar manner. So they kind of see it as kind of a karmic thing, of course, but I don't think that's how he's going to go out. I think that would be kind of lame. I have a feeling that somebody's going to swim down and pull him up to the surface. Then again, he's probably in pretty close proximity to those dragons, so maybe he'll gain his conscious, or gain his wits and realize where he's at and swim out, because he's not wearing full plate armor, I don't think, so it can't be that heavy. And plate armor itself isn't really that heavy, I mean, compared to what you might assume. So an awesome episode and a little bit longer review, but I definitely think it's worth it. So yeah, this is the kind of fantasy action that we've been waiting for years on this show. They've had some battles, but this is we've been teasing dragons, and now you get to finally see them used in an actual martial sense, even though they did attack some ships and whatnot. But this is definitely when they get to shine, and I hope personally that Drogon makes it out alive. I'd hate to see the dragons die this early on, especially since he's kind of the her favorite, and I guess since she's the one he's the one that she rides, and it's named after her late husband, Khal Drogo. So I hope that Jaime and Drogon both survive and go back and lick their wounds and continue this epic battle for the rule over this kingdom in this land of Westeros. So yeah, awesome episode. Looking forward to seeing the aftermath and what happens in the next one, and I will of course be there to review it. I make a promise that I will have it out at least either early Tuesday, like early Tuesday, or Tuesday morning, early afternoon. Yeah, so that's about all, folks. Take care, and I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did.